And for more on this, we're now being joined by Glenn Deason, who is a professor of international relations at the University of Southeastern Norway, who joins us from Oslo. And Glenn Deason, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this afternoon. Now, talks are advancing on the Saudi-US side. Clearly, a lot of potential wins in this deal for both sides, but some sticky issues that will be difficult to resolve as far as Israel is concerned, bringing them to agree to the Palestinian statehood and, of course, the withdrawal of troops from Gaza.
Well, no, I agree. And this is something that's been bothering them for some time as well, because the US-Saudi relationship has been very much tied to the Israeli-Saudi relationship, as it's being used as a way to normalize the relations between Tel Aviv and Riyadh. Now, the problem, of course, is that the Saudis won't deal with Israel if they don't commit to a Palestinian state and end the occupation in accordance with the 67 borders. Meanwhile, the Israelis will never accept a Palestinian state. So in order for the US-Saudi relationship not to be overly dependent on what Israel does, it's more beneficial to move towards this plan B, in which the US-Saudi relationship decouples from the Saudi-Israeli relationship. So I think that's the main direction they're going now.
Yeah, and an important aspect of this plan B, and a benefit certainly that could come to Saudi Arabia, is, of course, it could give access to Saudi Arabia to civilian nuclear programs. So tell us a little bit more about how significant that would be.
Well, it would be very significant. Saudi Arabia then could enter really heavily the nuclear energy market as well. But also the US is then offering artificial intelligence and other key technologies which are often associated with this fourth industrial revolution. So this will be important for Saudi Arabia's economic development. And some of the assumptions in Washington is if the Americans don't offer this, then other centers of power will. And that's, I would argue, to be the main driver of this economic agreement and security, for that sake, is China and Russia, which is always mentioned when we talk about Saudi Arabia, because we do have a multipolar international system emerging, and Saudi Arabia in this system is increasing its economic connectivity to these other centers of power. And this makes it very difficult for the US to extract sufficient economic loyalty or political obedience. So, and also bringing not Saudi Arabia is brought into BRICS, this is also exacerbating these concerns. So, yeah. You mentioned China before. Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead. In fact, I was just going to ask you about that other dynamic that's playing out in West Asia, and that is, of course, Russia and China. And this is, you're right, that an attempt by the US to steer back control of West Asia through, this and the Middle East through this grand bargain deal, as it were, that many are calling it.
Yeah, because well, it's not a hidden that economic interests and economic dependencies are often followed by political loyalties. And as you mentioned earlier, a way back, China had this negotiated this diplomatic reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Now, this is problematic for the United States because it's a security provider, and its influence diminishes effectively when peace breaks out. So, as we saw with the Saudis, they did not want to join any more the attacks on Yemen. The Saudis didn't even want to use their territory for attacks on Iran. And so this is what you see in an alliance system. When peace breaks out, the Saudis become less obedient, and also the US loses a proxy to fight Iran. So this is what we're seeing now. The alliance system is placed with a more multipolar and multilateralism in the region. And this is why the United States also tried to connect Saudi Arabia closer to them, as Saudi Arabia obviously want to diversify its ties. And it's a good deal for the Saudis as well if they can nurture good relations with the US, but it's going to be very difficult to convince the Saudis to do as the Europeans have done, which is to subordinate themselves in a bloc system. So this is not unlike what challenges other parts of the world are also facing at the moment.
Right, absolutely. Those important points there being made by you, Glenn Deason. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate your thoughts. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.